In this video, we are going to print and paint this entire dwarven fortress.
It's Tabletop Time.
I'm Dave.
And I'm Jen.
And today's video is brought to you by the new Kickstarter, the Mountain City of Gundbar, which you have seen before you. We're going to go on a massive mission to print and paint this huge city, including the interior.
This has been so much fun, but every story has a beginning, so let's take you back to the start. So I got given the task of doing up the inside of Gundbar, and I had a couple of ideas of how I wanted this to look. Now, Gundbar has different sections within it, one of them being a railroad track, another being just kind of like a temple, and the last one was a bar. So printing this thing has been a massive deal for the studio, and our printers are getting really busy at work printing all these different parts, and I'm going to quickly show you all of our printers really hard at work.
So we have Snapmaker, and then we have our two filament printers. Hi Dave.
Hey Jen. So when tackling a giant project like this, you always think about the 3D printers you've got, and we of course told the creators of Gundbar we had an Anycubic Cobra. They could send us the biggest files they've got and print it. It's going to be awesome. Except, of course, it broke after the first print. Basically had to get clever and cut up a whole bunch of the parts. Then, our Viper also broke. So both our printers catastrophically died immediately. Luckily, Murray and I both have Anycubic Vipers. His Viper is printing part of one of the floors that I cut up in Blender because of course we asked for the giant files. And the other ones are printing at mine at home. And then to make matters worse, we thought we had another printer, which is Jazz's Flashforge. And Jazz's Flashforge has decided that it also doesn't work anymore. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 3D printers that have been involved in this, and only half of them are broken. Now, one unfortunate thing that happened is we kind of discovered one of our 3D printers sort of broke while we were doing this. It was the biggest 3D printer we had, but we've been having trouble with it for some time, and the auto leveling sensor gave out after working on it, and you can see that one of the pieces is stringy and horribly printed here. So this is obviously a worst case scenario 3D print for everyone, but given the immense scope, we had to keep it and keep going. We obviously have a deadline for this mountain, and this print alone took several days to print, so can't really throw it away. We just got to make do with this one.
I had the perfect idea of how to get this to work. Now, there was no way I was going to get all of this fuzzy hair stuff off, but I used a heat gun to try and get rid of most of it. However, it did leave a couple of these spindly bits, and I thought this could work really well for a spider's lair.
That looks really good.
Thanks. It's kind of hard to get my hand in some of the places, but yeah, I think I did a pretty good job.
Now, with the studio printers that never get any love, need to be properly set up, calibrated, and made a lot better, basically out of commission, it was time for the home hobbyists to step in. So Murray and I have our own 3D printers, and we actually got them working as well. And as you can see, yeah, we've calibrated our printers a fair bit better than the ones at the studio. So we're going to commit a little bit of time to sorting out what's wrong with the ones at the studio and fixing them up. But nevertheless, this is a good lesson. 3D printing is a journey. It is a hobby in and of itself. So you're going to have little hiccups along the way, but at the end of the day, we actually had no problems with the files. I honestly have to say these were really impressive because support-free printing with FDM printing is quite difficult, but really important, I think, for good prints. And all of these prints, especially for the lower floor of Gundbar, are support-free. So that means when you print them on the print bed, you don't actually have to cut anything off. So as you can see with this one I'm working on, all I'm doing is removing a raft that helps it adhere to the bed. Other than that, the whole thing is just printed. It's done. I think that's awesome. I love it compared to the supports on resin prints.
Considering that some of the other pieces need a little bit of work, it was nice to go back every now and then and just take a raft off. Alrighty, it is a very glary, beautiful day. I can barely keep my eyes open as I'm recording this. But right now I'm going to spray Gundbar down with just some matte black spray just to get things started. And then I'm gonna spray down some colors to start off doing the inside process. Now, I've looked up a couple of images on Google, and from what I can tell, dwarven holds tend to have a lot of warmth and fire in them, but otherwise they're primarily made of stone and keeps the natural rock that exists in caves. So I'm gonna try and sort of emulate that, but try and keep that warmth and maybe a little bit of cool in there as well, but we'll go through that as you see me spray various colors onto these pieces. But first off is priming, so let's get started.
So Jen, you've established some really cool undertones, the classic Murray method just to give a bit of character to the place. And now it's time to paint. What's your plan for the inside, the lower floor of Gundbar?
So I need to give everything just a quick dry brush just to bring out all of those highlights like we do for every single project that we tackle.
But let's talk theme and mood. I see down here we seem to have a mine cart shaft as well as one of the entrances to Gundbar and maybe a bit of a tavern.
With the mine section, I decided I wanted to try and just pick out some of the details that are already established here in the terrain. This included the railroad tracks and the mine carts.
Yeah, this really striking and sort of obvious with really big contrast and highlights style of painting is very good for evoking a mood quickly in gaming terrain. So you're using some soft blending and feathering techniques just to help make that look a little bit more realistic as the reflection follows the edges of the railway track.
I wanted to approach Gundbar with more of a fantasy feel rather than realistic.
But I really like these sharp reflective pops of color on these railway tracks. It contrasts nicely with the dank interior. You can really see here, so once you start painting those little metal rivets and putting a bit of a wash on the wood, that the railway tracks really start to come together and look quite nice.
Thanks.
Now this one section was probably one of the only sections that was a bit weirdly warped, and that was my fault because of the nature of how I had to randomly chop the files apart, which is something none of you at home will have to do with Gundbar. It's only because we asked for a prototype version and a really large part and I had to cut it in half in Blender to fit it on two of our smaller printers. It actually left one of the pieces unsupported, so that's why that's a little bit janky there.
That's alright, it just adds more character to the piece. This particular piece of Gundbar is actually like a bar and possibly a place where adventurers would sleep. Unfortunately, this piece has got a couple of holes in it. But again, I decided to work with happy accidents and try to make this look like a place where the plants started to take over. I'd be able to fill the holes in with some dark earth terrain mix just to cover them up and then put some plants on top.
So these surface holes is actually quite a common problem with 3D printers that are on the fritz or not properly calibrated. And this piece was one of the pieces printed on our 3D printers before they died. That's why it's got a few motley holes in the surface. Thankfully, once we got Murray and my Vipers for the rest of Gundbar, we didn't have any more of these print issues. I like with the plants and these touches of color, this room has really come to life.
I really wanted to include a giant spider. This is one that got sent in to us by a fan quite a while ago, and I thought he would fit right at home in this scene. There's a couple of different ways you can make spider webs, so I'm going to try one of these methods that I think and hopefully is going to work. And that is using a hot glue gun and a hairdryer to try and make some spider webs. So let's test it out and see if it works.
Oh my god.
So at this point in the project, everything just needed little final touches to make it all stand out nicely. It's also included a black trim around the top, so when we took the top of Gundbar off, it just would look really nice.
Yeah, this looks really cool. Nice work.
I was really happy with how my spider effect had turned out on the board, but it was looking a little bit transparent and I kind of wanted it to look more old and worn. So I got a little bit of white paint and just painted some of the glue fibers to make them stand out a little bit more.
This is inspired by spider webs that have been left for too long and they start to go really sort of opaque and you can really see them.
So next was putting in some of the plant life. I'd already dry brushed the dark earth to give it a bit more texture, but now we needed to create our plants. I used the Gamer's Grass collection and just used a range of plants I thought would fit to theme.
Adding tufts, plants, and flocks can be a really cool way to add a little bit of texture to scenery and really break it up, especially things like 3D printed models. I find that these touches really start to bring it to life.
Gundbar has a lot of established furniture already inside it, but every now and then there is a little bit of a bare wall. I found that putting these plants in these specific areas really helped bring it to life. A nice little finishing touch I wanted to add to this area was putting in some flowers and plants in the little mugs that were left on the table. This also included a range of laser cut plants on the ground and in a couple of the mugs as well. While I was happy with how the plant life was looking, I felt like the piece needed a little bit of pop of colour, so I quickly added in just some colour to the banners and to the fire pit behind.
I also see you using some weathering pigments here.
I decided in the area where there was plant life, I wanted to add some rain effects, so it kind of symbolized that the plants were growing there. They had some life to them.
Maybe some leaking from above.
Exactly.
So Gunbar is a massive dwarven fortress, and while it has been built to be modular with tabs that can glue together and allow you to deconstruct and reconstruct it, at Tabletop Time we go big. So we are actually going to assemble it all. Jen's been doing an awesome job painting the basement floor, and it's time for me to start gluing all the pieces of Gunbar together so that we can layer it up and basically paint it all together. Now obviously, as we're promoting the Kickstarter, we received an early version of the files, so you might notice a few differences between what we're working on and the Kickstarter. And one of those big differences is at the time we started printing this massive project, the upper floors of Gunbar had no interior. So we'll only be painting the interior of the basement. Everything else is going to be a juicy exterior. So I'm going to get down to business and start working on gluing all of this together, and we can really see this impressive fortress in true scale come together.
Alrighty, Dave, here is another piece all done and ready to go.
Awesome, the spider zone is starting to look really cool. I love what you've done, it turned out well.
Yeah, thanks. I like that there's different compartments, so there's like a spider's lair, a plant sort of lair, and the mines as well.
But I'm thinking before I glue these areas together, I'm going to give you this bit because this actually has some interior we didn't notice, so that probably needs to be primed. And also there's a lot of areas like here that actually join on to other zones you've already finished that you probably want to match together with like the plant vibes. I think it could be cool to get a few stringy spider webs coming into this room and maybe going into the mines as well, just to join the sections really cohesively.
Yep, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, you spray that and
Yep.
I'll start gluing these two pieces together. So obviously this is made up of a lot of really cool modular pieces, but we at Tabletop Time are gluing them all together, and because 3D printing is an inexact science, there's a couple of gaps, so I'm just gap filling with some sculpt mold so that tomorrow I can prime everything and it should be a little bit more seamless. So I wanted to tell you all about our sponsor, the Mountain City of Gunbar, which is an amazingly huge collection of STL suitable for printing in resin and FDM printers. The Gunbar Kickstarter starts today, and it is centered around an awesome pre-made campaign. The amazing Mountain City of Gunbar will actually be available in two variants. Variant A, the Mountain City, is 6 floors with 31 unique rooms. This version makes the Gunbar you have seen us build today.
Variant B will be a modular tile variant compatible with open lock. The 31 rooms from Variant A will be translated into modular tiles, so you'll be able to rebuild the original rooms from Variant A or build rooms with your own imagination.
The first version is 100% support free, and the second version will be pre-supported for SLA printers, but also support free for FDM printers. You can choose which variant you'd like, or you can get them both if you select the Ultimate Adventure tier. But there's more than just this giant castle city.
That's right, alongside Gunbar we have Fergult, a village town that's surviving the smoke-borne dwarves.
Fergult is also available in a series of awesome support-free FDM prints. Alongside that, there's also a range of miniatures, all coming pre-supported for your SLA printers.
For the first 48 hours, the top 2 tiers will receive a free dice tower.
There's also a link to free files, so if you want to try out how these print for yourself, they're available on the project page and can be downloaded from My Mini Factory. But the campaign is live right now, so go check it out. Links in the description. Make sure to throw them some support and get printing this awesome set of modular dwarven themed terrain for your campaigns. All right, it's time to spray paint Gunbar and establish the Murray method. Jen, you ready? All right, if this goes bad, I'm gonna need you to save my butt. Is that something you can do? Just throw the camera down and save me?
No.
I'm so nervous about this. Oh my gosh. Hey, Gunbar! Me when I'm not with you. Me when I'm with you. All right, it's time to prime this giant dwarven fortress, and I'm gonna start with black before establishing a whole bunch of foundational colors. And I'm thinking we're gonna have the sun coming in from this angle, so we might go a little bit warmer on this side, a little bit cooler on this side, and it's gonna set some really good undertones. But, you know, there ain't nothing to it but to do it, so let's do it. What do you think? I think it
looks like a rainbow. Nah, I can see how it's gonna work. These are all undertones, and you can see already a moody dark side and a bright sunshine, like the dawn is cresting over the horizon. I think with some paint on this, it's gonna lend to a really cool lighting effect. We'll make sure we use the lighter colors on this side with our dry brushing and painting. I'm really pumped to do a bit of lighting on this. I think it'll be good.
I think it looks amazing.
All right, so with all of our undertones established, it was time to start to paint this. And when painting scenes that have a strong theme with lighting, it's actually a really interesting process and one I'm not amazingly familiar with. So what we did is we blended a little bit of the colors. So for example, a little bit of the warm yellow with a neutral gray for the stone, and then dry brushed that all over the surfaces facing the light. We did the opposite for the dark areas, mixing a tiny bit of blue with the same mid-gray to have a blue tinged highlight color.
Now, Goomba is made out of the side of a mountain cliff, but we decided to sort of break these two colors up. We thought this would work a bit better than it being entirely dry brushed gray.
So the foundational color for the earth or the stone around Gunba is actually a brown, whereas we used gray for the city itself.
All right, I'm ready to do some painting. I think this splash of red is really gonna make this pop. Having these sort of warm lit windows contrasting everything, gonna be awesome. Let's do it. So Jen is working on the board, absolutely smashing it out, but I want to add some trees. So I'm actually going to take a couple of these Woodland Scenics trees outside and I'm going to give them the same spray. Bit of a zenithal, blue from below, orange from one side, and then we'll find a place for them on the board.
It wasn't only the trees that we wanted to bring in to give a bit of life, we also used some texturing paints as well as flock and laser cut plants and tufts. All of these were applied to the board carefully in a way to kind of just bring a bit more texture and a few elements to the board and bring it to life. Something we also did is we got dry brushes and we dry brushed even these tufts and flocks from the light sources that we were creating. On the dark side of the board, we used the Drakenhof Nightshade wash on these tufts to basically give them that night tint, and on the light side, we dry brushed a little bit of yellow.
I highly recommend using this technique. It worked really well.
Gamers Grass have these alien fern plants. So I'm gonna use the blue plants on the night side of the board and the orange ones on the dawn side of the board, and I think it's gonna look really good.
I'm going to spend the remainder of the day punching out these little leaves with tissue paper. I don't know how this is going to look or if it's going to work very well, but we're going to do some experimenting and see if we can get it to blend in nicely.
So let's check out some reveals of not only the outside but the inside of the mountain city Gundba.
Or Gunba, it's either or.
Jennifer, what time is it?
Patreon time?
It's Patreon time. It's time to say thank you to all of our amazing patrons for your support. Thank you so much for being with us, being in our mini Discord, being in our mini review. We actually had more submissions to our mini review last month than we've ever had before, which was super great to see all of your models, and we love doing it every month. So if you'd love to be part of that, consider signing up to our Patreon and submitting a model to our mini review, or just checking out our Patreon content.
All the links are in the description below.
Your support really helps us out
and is literally key to us being able to produce 2 videos a week.
And hey, if you really enjoyed this video, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. It really does help us out.
All right, Jen, we're finished. It's all done. I think this is a super great piece of terrain for playing D&D in.
Yeah, if I walked into a D&D game and this was sitting on the table, I would be very impressed.
I really love the way that we've captured the dawn coming in, and we've got the dark side kind of vibing like Helm's Deep. It was fun to work on something different, and it's very cool to know that inside, underneath this, there is a painted interior.
That's it.
We might see that in games on Tabletop Time Roleplay in the future. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. I guess just make sure you watch the next video. Yeah, Murray couldn't be in this one because not enough people clicked like on the last video.
Yeah, he's currently in his
Back in his cell.
house.
Yeah, we did give him a tin of beans, but
Isn't he a robot?
yeah, he smears them on himself.
Oh, okay.
Remember that? Remember when Murray was a robot? Old Tabletop Time fans remember.
It was a good time.
It was a good time to be here.